I want to thank everybody for being with us. We're here with two of our experts that's going to be talking about our mobility fund and how we get West Virginia connected. That's our main purpose for being here today. I have with me Commissioner Jessica Rosen-Warsaw. Is that correct, Jessica?
That is correct.
And I have with him Mr. Aaron Cox from Hampshire County, our local expert. We're going to talk in Mobility Fund, what we're talking about, there'll be over $4.5 billion that'll be distributed in the next 10 years. That's an average of $450 million a year. That's a lot of money, and we can connect a lot of West Virginians and really take care of our rural challenges that we have in rural America. Rural West Virginia probably has more challenges because of the terrain that we're dealing with. So it's going to be more costly, and we don't have the population base to justify the private sector moving in, so that is why it is critical. And we've been fighting for this. This came about because at the time, and I think it was 2015, I brought Chairman Wheeler, and I said, he was telling me the maps and all this and that was just right, and I said, the maps are wrong, the maps are not accurate. So I said, why don't you visit me in Tucker County? Came to Tucker County. I says, hey Tom, why don't you make a phone call? Any carrier you want to call. And with that started the ball rolling. This is not accurate. The way that the different carriers have claimed that they had coverage when they didn't was inaccurate, and we're correcting that. And these two wonderful professionals are going to help us do that today. So we want to get started, and Commissioner, if you want to start off a little bit just about yourself, where you got to and how you got to where you are today.
Well, thank you, Senator Manchin, for having me here. I have a little history with West Virginia, and that for many years I served on the Senate Commerce Committee for Senator Rockefeller. So I do know the state, and I know that its hills are beautiful, but they are hard to connect. And too many people in West Virginia don't have the broadband and wireless service they need. Because if you don't have service today, you're not going to have a fair shot at 21st century success. And it's why the work that I do with some of my colleagues at the Federal Communications Commission is so important. We've got to figure out how to close that digital divide, especially in places like West Virginia that are rural and hard to connect. And we're going to talk a little more about how to do that today.
And our goal is to get 4G coverage.
You bet. And then we'll move on to 5G.
We'll get 5G, but I'll start with 4 and we'll go to 5.
Okay.
Aaron, why don't you give us a little background?
Well, first, Senator, thank you for recognizing Hampshire County and allowing me to come out and apologize because I'm far from an expert. And so, but what I will say is that we're sort of the boots on the ground. We've got the high level aspect, and then with Hampshire County being just about as low level as you really want to get a broadband project. So how our broadband project really started was about a year and a half ago, 2017 or so, early 2017. Hampshire County decided to create a broadband initiative council to try to spur on some more economic development, and this spurred back. So since then,
why don't you start, because you're going to be the first question.
Sure.
Why don't you tell us what is your coverage, broadband coverage, like in Romney and Hampshire County today?
It's very sporadic. And
where was it a year or two ago?
Well, it was very sporadic. So are we seeing some improvements? Absolutely, as the technology improves. Mm-hmm. But the problem is that the technology is not advancing as quick, and the infrastructure is not advancing as quick as what the need is. So the need for internet and broadband,
there, right?
Yeah, is absolutely there. I mean, it's very significant.
Just you can't get a carrier to come in and make the investment.
Of course, our population density drives a lot of this, and last year we actually created a feasibility study, and we can go into that now. Actually, what the residents were saying in and around.
So
Hampshire
if I go
County.
fishing up the trough, I'm not going to get too much connectivity.
You're not.
I got it.
And we can't guarantee the fish sometimes.
I know. I've had both.
Looking at some of the statistics, when we completed our broadband survey, though,
Okay.
93% of respondents in Hampshire County wanted better broadband, and I think that's fairly significant. 76% of them wanted better cell phone service. But looking at Hampshire County as a whole in the economic statistics, and you're intimately aware, but Hampshire County has the average travel time to work is 35 minutes. Almost 7% of the commuters that go out of Hampshire County have what they call a super commute, and that's a commute of more than 90 minutes. So we'd love to be able to bring those jobs closer to Hampshire County so that these people were not going to these super commutes. we're 20.8% with below the poverty level, 6.9% unemployment rate. The Appalachian Regional Commission lists us as transitional, so we've got a lot of things that are negative about our beautiful county, and a lot of it really can be tied back to the lack of a good broadband commerce.
Commissioner,
So-
as Aaron's describing what he's going through in just beautiful Hampshire County and Romney, one of my favorite cities in the whole state, how does that compare with rural America? What's going on?
Yeah, I was just in rural Alabama last week. Same issues you get in rural West Virginia or anywhere else in this country, where you could be on a beautiful highway or byway, but you suddenly have no bars on your phone. And maybe that's lovely when you're fishing at certain points, but the truth is, if you have to call for emergency services, you're at risk. If you want to build a business, it's real hard to do. And if you want to make sure that kids have the ability to do simple things like their homework if they live in that community, it's hard too. We have got to figure out how to get more broadband and wireless service in rural America, because without it, they just don't have a shot at success in the internet era.
We had today in one of my meetings, in appropriations meeting, we had Secretary Betsy DeVos, Secretary of Education, and we were talking. I was telling her that she was talking about vouchers and this and that, and I said vouchers doesn't work in a rural state such as West Virginia. When we are trying to do and provide the best education we can't afford two systems. She was saying, well, you could afford basically with a voucher or with some type of extension to where a person can get on and get virtual. I said, virtual means I have to have connectivity. You understand, in rural America, and especially in rural West Virginia, we're not even connected. That opportunity is not there. So we're leaving children behind that should never, and that's a challenge. Aaron, are you seeing improvements, or have you seen some improvements?
Again, some of the improvements that we're seeing, they're small, but the demand, with the increase in online video streaming and things like that, is really cutting down on the bandwidth availability. So, but to your point earlier, from our feasibility study, one of the actual comments that came out of our feasibility study, if I can take a second just to read this, is we have a homeschool family with 4 children. Although there are some great online resources, most days we cannot access them because of extremely slow service. We cannot purchase online curriculum because many days we cannot access their assignments. They've tried this and had to return to curriculum because of our lack of quality internet. And this is a resounding, I have page after page after page from this feasibility study that just continues to talk about the lack of availability for online resources.
Commissioner, how does the FCC quantify where service is and is not, and how does it map broadband? Or we know how it tried,
Right.
and how are we correcting it?
Okay, well, the first thing I believe is you can't manage problems you don't measure. And when it comes to broadband measurement, I think the FCC has some work to do. I'm one of 4 people who vote on this, so I'd like to say I run the whole show, but I'm going to have to convince my colleagues. We've got 2 different kinds of maps. We've got a wired map. It shows that 24 million people in this country, largely in rural communities, don't have broadband. I think that map needs some work, because even at my house here in Washington, D.C., it says I have service that I don't have. So we're going to have to work on that.
Numbers much higher.
Yeah. And when it comes to wireless service, we have real work to do. If you build a map of lakes and roads, you know where they are. But building a map of where wireless service is and is not requires us building a map of something that's invisible, our airwaves. So it's hard. So the FCC started the process, as I think it should. It went to the carriers and said, hey, where do you have service in rural America? And they all came back and they filed some maps with us. But now is the most important part, because we're letting people challenge what those carriers said.
Can I interject this?
Yeah.
When they first were asked, what is your service areas? Were they claiming state to an area that they really hadn't serviced, but they would like to have serviced and want to have control over it?
That is a excellent point, because what happens is they file maps that feel like they could be right, but are a little bit aspirational.
Right.
They overstate where service is and is not. And all of us know that. If you live or work in one of those communities, you know that corner of the road where you can't get service. You know if you turn off of Main Street that suddenly your wireless phone doesn't work. We got to figure out how to take those maps that they submitted to the FCC and make them right by the people on the ground.
Tell me about the challenge.
Yeah.
If I wanted a challenge, because I've entered into the challenge. I want to be
know.
part of this challenge.
I am sitting here with the only member of Congress who's chosen to challenge the FCC's map. I hope more people follow your
hope they do.
lead, because I don't think those maps are right. And my colleagues did set up a process so that we could make sure that everyone could challenge some of that data. That's the good news. The bad news is that process is complicated. Now, that doesn't mean you can write it off, because $4.5 billion over the next 10 years is on the table to help rural communities improve wireless service. So I think it's important we get state, local officials, small carriers, and other interested persons involved in challenging the FCC's data.
Aaron, have you gone down this challenge route for the Mobility Fund?
We have, I'm currently in the process of receiving access to the data. I have downloaded some of the data that's been made available. But I'll agree with the commissioner's take on this. It's not an easy task.
No,
It's extremely cumbersome, and
For that reason, there'll be money available for those who know how to navigate it.
Yes.
And they'll be the first ones, I think, to be able
Yes.
to have this. And I would want West Virginia to be that.
But how
first
great
state.
would it be if we surprised people, and counties and rural communities in West Virginia and everywhere else decided to get involved? And they said they looked at this map and say, hey, that's not what we experience. It will take making sure that you participate through our Universal Service Administrative Company, downloading data and running some physical tests with approved phones.
Well, let
but
me
the
ask you-
outcome, I think, is worth it.
Let's simplify it to this. Let's say that I'm XYZ carrier in West Virginia. I won't name any names. And I'm the only one that says I've got that area covered. That's my area. Okay? You live in the area.
Right.
And you're going to say, no, Joe, I'm sorry. You're XYZ company. You might say you have claim to this, but you're not giving me coverage. I'm going to challenge that because I want somebody else to come in here and be able to provide service. How do I navigate that? How do I do that if I'm in Hampshire County? Or have you run into that conducting this challenge?
well, number one, a citizen would, correct me if I'm wrong, but a citizen has to actually have a waiver to be able to challenge that process. They have to have one of the approved devices.
Can I go through a county commission? Can I go through a county office?
Yes.
Is it much easier to work with my county officials than to me individually?
Yes. State and local officials can almost automatically get access.
And
they
this
don't
is the
have
reason
to
I put
petition.
the challenge in.
Right.
Right. So, again, where you have counties and state, state and local organizations that have the technical ability to do that, but at this point, there's a lot of state and local, county officials that don't have that technical skill to be able to challenge that.
So let's take my office, for example, okay?
Okay.
I'm officially challenging the entire state map of everything they're saying in West Virginia. If I have a constituent who is somebody from West Virginia watching this podcast right now, they're going to say, well, I need to call Senator Manchin's office and see if he can make sure that they know that we're an underserved area and I've got no service whatsoever. Can we go ahead and proceed with that person on that challenge? Is that how you would perceive that to happen?
Absolutely.
right. And I think, it's going to have to be a boots on the ground,
Yeah.
low level, as low a level possible to get that funneled into to the areas that we need
That's
it.
what we really need. Because sitting here in Washington, we can pull together any map we want, but it's people on the ground who know where service really is and is not. And we've got to figure out a way to make sure Washington listens to those people and fixes its maps in response.
What improvements can be made?
Well, lots of them. There, if you,
for this process
Yeah.
to work? From your standpoint, FCC, how do we make sure that this process is able to get to you all to say they are correct? That challenge is warranted, and this is the money we're going to put towards that challenge.
So we've made a few improvements that are small but worth pointing out. We've extended the period of time for people to challenge. And so now it was supposed to end at the end of August. We're going to add another 90 days. So the period of time to challenge these maps is now longer. We're also making public more information about the devices you can use to challenge it. That's good, but it's small bore. In the end, what I'd love to do is not only have these challenges, but convince my colleagues we could, rely on the wisdom of crowds and use a little crowdsourcing so that everyone who's willing to participate can come and send some data to the FCC, and perhaps we could aggregate it over time and use it to inform our maps and make sure they're correct. Now, that's a long-term goal. In the near term, we need as many state and local officials and interested people to challenge these maps if they think they're not right as possible. And I know my office will help anyone who wants to do that, because this is important. It's about getting rural America connected.
Well, a person basically, we'll go back to the XYZ company who says, this is my area, I've got it covered. They've got to prove they've got it covered. I'm challenging they don't have it all
Right.
covered. If they say they have it covered, they're going to have to say we have connectivity in every place in that market area they've said. In West Virginia, most of all the areas, the maps I've seen, only had only one carrier.
Save for Charleston and
Yeah.
64,
Yeah,
79,
okay, right.
few of the major
but
roads.
most of
yeah.
the state, we're probably one of the least covered states east of the Mississippi.
That's true.
Okay, so we have a possibility of more challenges, and more challenges that would be granted and accepted.
Yes.
That's what we have to know. So how do we do this and working? Because my office will do whatever we can to organize this. If we had a CD that I know we'd love for you to come
Yeah.
all over
Well,
our
maybe
beautiful.
we could do some testing out there together.
But we could do some testing and do that. Maybe come to Hampshire and see what we could do to
and
get
maybe
you,
organize some other county officials so that you can do it together.
and do a
en
working
masse.
group in certain areas and get our county officials together, all of them, so we
Yeah.
can show them how to do this.
We were discussing a little bit prior to your arrival, and a little bit about possibly getting some other regional organizations involved and try to group some people together and garner some support. I will give the FCC has done a really good job with recently putting out the YouTube videos and
Yeah.
the training videos on how to do the process. So there's a
The
really
videos
great
are out
video.
there.
Yes,
It's hard, but so much money is at stake.
right.
It would be a shame if we didn't figure out a way to put it where it really needs to go.
Well, what happens is I see so many people devoting so much energy and time towards grant writing, just trying to get a grant for anything. And we're always chasing the dollar because we're limited in our beautiful state, which most rural states are. The amount of effort they put towards this and the return on that would be unbelievable.
You're right.
To have this type of connectivity, 4G and hopefully go to 5G, but let's say get 4G coverage all over Hampshire County. Can that be? I can go fishing and work at the same time.
Good. But I think that sort of negates the point, doesn't it?
Well, I have done this before. I have been talking on the phone while I was fishing in a stream. I have fallen
Don't
over a
drop
rock.
that phone in
I've
the
tumbled
water.
into the water, lost my phone, lost everything. So I've been the bad person there by taking my phone with me for some reason. Anyway, let me thank you all both. If there's anything else you'd like to add to this, we're trying to help everyone that's watching right now that understands you've got to get involved. If your county official office holders, if they haven't started this process, call your county commissioners, call all your elected officials. Tell them you want to challenge in the county you live in because you're not getting service. You're not connected at all. Your kids can't do their homework. We can't have the virtual. We can't have telemedicine. We can't have any of the things that we should have in the 21st century for a better quality of life in West Virginia.
Absolutely.
I agree.
Okay. Thank you all. We appreciate you. We hope it helps. Contact my office, Senator Joe Manchin's office, and contact us. We can help facilitate, connect you, and get you hooked up. Thank you.